Let's start with a new topic, utility analysis. Then question arises in our mind, what is utility? The concept utility has been introduced by Alfred Marshall, famous economist, in his book Principles of Economics, written in 1890. According to Alfred Marshall, utility means want satisfying power or ability or capacity of commodity. Every commodity possesses utility. Rather, that commodity is having a power. For example, a person is thirsty. So, one glass of water will satisfy his want. So, you can say water possesses utility. There are two types of commodities, free goods and non-free goods. Free goods are those goods for which we are not paying anything. For example, air, water, sunshine, for which we are not paying anything. But these commodities possess greater utility. On the other hand, there are few commodities for which you are paying. For example, food, clothing, shelter, books, clothes, etc. for which you are paying. These commodities also possess utility. So you can say every commodity which possess power, which possess capacity to satisfy your want, that commodity is having utility. For example, being a commerce student, book of biology 12th science will not possess utility for you. Why? Because that book is not useful for you. That book will not satisfy your wants. So you can say 12th science biology book is having not utility for us. But a science student can say, yes sir, that book is having utility for us because it will satisfy their want. To understand the concept utility, let's discuss about features or characteristics of utility. Number one, relative concept. Yes, you can say utility is a relative concept. It is related with time, place, person, situation. As time changes, utility also changes. As place changes, utility also changes. Let's take an example. It changes from person to person. Knife has a greater utility in kitchen for your mother, but it has no utility to student in classroom. Or you can say pen has a greater utility for you in classroom and not in kitchen. So you can say it is a relative concept. It changes from person to person. It changes from place to place. AC has a greater utility in Rajasthan, Jaipur, Mumbai. On the other hand, a heater has a greater utility in Jammu Kashmir, Sikkim, Darjeeling. It changes from place to place. It changes from situation to situation. It changes as per climate. Again, you can say woolen coat has a greater utility for you, especially in winter season. And raincoat has a greater utility in rainy season. In short, you can say utility is a relative concept. It changes from person to person, place to place, and situation to situation. Second feature, subjective concept. Utility is a subjective concept. There are two approaches. One is subject and another is object. Utility does not depend upon object. Again, you can say knife. Knife is our object and a user is a subject. Utility is a subjective concept. So it depends on user, that is subject, and not object. If that knife is used for any other reason, especially non-ethical reason, that is committing a murder. So that knife you can say it has no utility, it has a bad utility. Morally it is colorless. That feature we will complete afterwards. But you can say utility depends on subject and not an object. Pen is the object. Pen possesses utility, but again it depends on the user. 12th, bookkeeping and accountancy book. It is our object, but again it depends on subject, that is subjective use. A 12th commerce student is using that book, he will say it has utility for me. So you can say utility is a subjective concept. It does not depend on object, but it depends on subject. Hence, you can say utility is a subjective concept. Third feature, utility is different from usefulness. What do you mean by usefulness? Usefulness means use or needfulness. There are certain commodities, they are not useful, they are not needful for us, but still they possess utility. Rather, you can say sometimes utility and usefulness both are same concept, but sometimes you can say utility differs from usefulness. Let's take an example of cigarette, liquor. Smoking is injurious to health. Liquor is also injurious to health. It is not useful, it is not needful for us. But you can say it possesses utility for a smoker or drunkard. So, utility is different from usefulness. Utility is different from pleasure. Feature number 4, utility is different from pleasure. Pleasure means happiness. Pleasure means joy. When we are using commodity, it will give happiness, it will give pleasure to us. So you can say utility and pleasure are both the same concept, but not necessary. Various times utility differs from pleasure. Let's take an example. Injection. Injection will not give any pleasure to us. Bitter medicine. Bitter medicine will not give any pleasure or happiness or joy for us. But still, that bitter medicine and that injection is having utility for us. It is having utility for patient. So you can easily say utility is a different from pleasure. Next feature, utility is a different from satisfaction. You can rightly say satisfaction is the end result of consumption. Satisfaction is the end result of consumption. When you will consume commodity, you will get satisfaction or you may not get satisfaction. But the utility is that thing which is sometime matching with satisfaction. Because there are certain commodities which will give satisfaction to us. Let's take an example. If a person is thirsty, for his thirst, he is consuming 1 glass of water. So that consumption, the end result of that consumption is satisfaction. That 1 glass of water will give satisfaction to that person. But suppose he is taking or he is consuming hot water, especially during summer season, that will not give satisfaction to him. Then 1 glass of water, 1 glass of cool or chilled water will give satisfaction to him. So you can say utility is different from satisfaction. Next feature, utility is a multi-purpose. Utility is a multi-purpose. Why? Because more than one person or more than one use, if that commodity we are using, you can say utility is a multi-purpose. Let's take an example of electricity. Electricity it has multiple uses for charging mobile, laptop, for running home appliances that electricity is useful. So you can say utility is a multi-purpose. For different purposes, you can use that commodity. Another example is laptop, mobile. It is useful for us, especially for calling the person, especially for playing games, for storing data, for mail, accessing mail, WhatsApp and various other things. So utility is a multi-purpose. It provides entertainment to us. It provides utility use to us. Utility is having cardinal measurement. Another feature is a cardinal measurement. Cardinal measurement means what? Basically, utility cannot be measured in numbers. It is an abstract concept. It is a hypothetical concept. How? Let's take an example. When a thirsty person is taking water, he will say, I got utility from that one glass of water. But if you ask him how much utility you got from that one glass of water, it is very difficult. He may say, I got utility which is more. He may say, I got positive utility. Sometimes utility can be zero. Utility can be negative. So you can verbally say utility can be negative. Now what do you mean by negative utility? If you will not satisfy from that commodity or any dissatisfaction from that commodity is considered as an negative utility. So like numbers 1, 2, 3, numerical measurement of utility is not possible. Abstract measurement may be possible. You can categorize or you can have a grading. I got first class utility, I got excellent utility, but in numbers, in a sense of percentage, in the sense of numbers or fractions, you cannot say that utility is measured. That's why you can say utility is having cardinal measurement or abstract measurement. Utility depends upon intensity of want. Yes, utility depends intensity of want. Person is hungry. In that case, food will satisfy his need. He will say food possesses utility for him. But if he has consumed food and again we are forcing him to take the food, he will say, no, I don't want. Why? Because his utility is fully satisfied. Even if you forced him to consume or to take the food, he will receive dissatisfaction or disutility because his utility has been over. Utility depends on intensity of want. More the intensity, more will be utility for you. Ethically neutral concept. Another feature, utility is ethically neutral concept. Now what do you mean by ethically neutral concept? In other sense, you can say utility is morally colorless. Utility does not think about good or bad, moral or immoral, ethical or unethical. Utility does not think about all these things. Let's take an example of alcohol. Alcohol possesses utility. But if that alcohol is used in liquor, you will say it's a bad thing because liquor is a socially or morally bad commodity. The same alcohol we are using in sanitizer or you are using in cough syrup, it possesses greater utility for us. Because good or bad, utility does not think about good or bad. Utility does not think about moral or immoral. We have taken one example that about knife. Knife used in kitchen for cutting fruits and vegetables. It possesses greater utility, or you may say it's a moral utility of that knife. But if that knife is used for committing murder, you can say it is unethical or immoral. In short, utility is morally colorless. Last but not least, utility creates base for demand. Utility creates base for demand. Whenever a person is demanding any commodity, it has some base, and that base is known as an utility. Without utility, person will not demand commodity. Let's take an example. 12th commerce student will not demand book of biology, chemistry, physics. Why? Because these books is not having utility for them. And as they don't have utility, they will not demand that commodity. Suppose it's a summer season, you will not buy or you will not demand heater. Why? Because it will not possess utility for you. It will not give satisfaction to you. You will buy AC. Why? Because during summer, AC has a greater utility. And as AC has a greater utility, you will demand AC for your family. So you can say utility creates base for demand.